Hi, this is Andre. The Loupé has many different ways to deliberately mangle and degrade its audio, and we're going to check out some of those here. Now, many of these sounds are part of the ReadFX category of functions. We've gone in-depth into ReadFX in a couple of previous videos, so if you're not familiar with that, or if you still have questions after this video, those are good resources to check out. Okay, we're going to start off actually recording a very pristine, clean-sounding loop. So we've got feedback all the way up to 100%, and we have overdub off. So as you listen to it repeat, the sound isn't changing at all. It's staying exactly the same as it was on the first repetition. And if we bring feedback down and overdub some new stuff on top, you can hear the older layers are fading out, but they're not changing in tone. They're just getting quieter. Bring the feedback back up all the way. Alright, now we're going to switch to a not pristine game 66. And right now we're not going to hear any change immediately because overdub is closed and feedback is at 100%. Let's bring feedback down and listen to what happens to the tone of the stuff in the loop. So what's happening is there are high and low pass filters in the feedback loop. And we can actually look at that if we go into editing this. And you can see there's a low pass filter set at 4K, and there's a high pass filter set at 40 Hertz. So as it continues to repeat, the sound degrades more and more. This is not exactly 1,000,000% like you would get on a analog tape delay necessarily, but it's that kind of idea. What we're going to do now is add a little bit of pitch modulation. This is not necessarily super obvious initially, so I'm going to overdub stuff. It's starting to get that kind of warbly sound. Part of that is also because we're leaving overdub open, and this is a ReadFX, and because of the way this ReadFX is set up, basically it will compound itself. So if you leave overdub open, it will keep re-affecting the loop more and more, so each successive pitch modulation gets built upon the last. So it's got that kind of Boards of Canada thing happening. Now we've turned that ReadFX off, but again, because that was imprinting into the loop, we can still hear that warbliness. Now we're going to switch to a slightly different pitch modulation. And sure, let's compound this. Turn that off. There's a more extreme kind of pitch modulation over here. And again, overdub open will compound that. Wow. Add some new stuff on top. here's one of my favorites. This is kind of a feedback sort of thing. So it's almost like a space echo kind of self-oscillation. I'm going to bring decay down a bit to get the volume a little more under control. And you can have that just a little bit at a time. So that's a pretty subtle thing. You can hear there's a bump in the level, but it's not enormous. If you keep holding it down with overdub open, it'll keep getting compounded. Alright, I have a good old-fashioned replace function built in here. And let's check out a couple of slightly less analog-esque effects. This is a reverse. And again, this is set up so that if decay is at less than 100%, or if overdub is open, then this gets imprinted into the loop. Put some more stuff on there. I'm going to bring feedback up to 100% so this stuff will be non-destructive. So now it's reversing, but it's not getting imprinted into the loop. If we turn overdub on, or bring decay down, we'll do both. Now it will get imprinted into the loop. There we go. And in the even less purely analog realm, there's a time stretch kind of thing happening here. I'm going to bring that up. And again, nobody is going to mistake this for an analog sound, but it just seems to be of a piece with the flavor of this particular game. And if we bring feedback down, we can imprint that stuff. And this is just successively imprinting reverse, and technically it's a stutter with drift, but it sounds like a time stretch to me. Now I'm deliberately going to build up a big texture, because we're going to switch to another game, and listen to what happens with this one. The low frequencies are getting faded out, but the high frequencies are staying pretty much intact. And if I keep adding more stuff on top, here's a low note. And you can hear the low frequencies are getting eaten away. If I play high frequency stuff, you can hear the high frequencies are pretty much untouched. So that's because of the way that the feedback filters are set in this. If we check that out, low pass filter is set to 9K, high pass is only set to 150. So you're filtering out a lot more of the low frequency content than you are the high frequency content. And in this game we also have some slightly different things. I think this is a pitch shift. Reverse plus pitch shift. That's a different kind of time stretch. And again, as those new overdubs repeat, you can hear that the low frequency is dying out. High frequencies are staying pretty much intact. And this bank has some slightly different pitch modulation stuff. And again, low frequencies are dying out, high frequencies are staying pretty intact. Let's do a different pitch modulation. Woo! And now I'm going to deliberately build up a lot of high frequency content. Because we're going to do this. This game is the opposite of the one we were just at. Now, the low frequencies are staying more or less intact, but the high frequencies are getting filtered out a lot faster. And again, that's because of the way that the high and low pass filters are configured. So on this one, the low pass filter is 2K, high pass filter is all the way down at 0, so it's basically not doing anything. The high frequencies decay much faster. There's some slightly different pitch modulation options here as well. Fairly subtle on this one. Not so subtle on that. And I think we still have that scary feedbacker on this one. Yep. Alright, let's go back to the game that filters out the low frequency but keeps the high. And now let's go back to the one that filters out the high and keeps the low. And we also have some pitch shifting here. Some slightly different time stretching. I'm going to move back to 66 so that it's a little more of a subtle decay on both the high and low frequencies. What key am I in? B. let's mess this up a bit. So applying some pitch modulation again. Bit of a warble going on. I want a little more warble, so I'm going to switch to that one. And let's get a little bit of that fake self-oscillation feedback happening. And back to filtering out just the lows. And now just the highs. And now we're going to go to a more extreme game. This actually doesn't filter out any of the higher low frequencies. There's nothing in the feedback loop as far as higher low pass filters. Just because this does enough weird stuff in other ways that I figured, just in case you want to keep the frequencies more or less intact, it's nice to have that option. There we go. Pitch modulation with a very high depth and very slow speed. And that was destructive, so we've imprinted it in. We could undo that. Let's undo it, just for laughs and grins. Go to a game that has an undo. There we go. And if we have feedback up all the way and overdub is closed, then it's non-destructive. Now we're back to the regular loop as soon as we release it. And this is a very slow time stretch. Right now, overdub is closed, and decay is at 100%, so it's not being written into the loop. If we release it, it's back to the way it was. But if we bring decay down and or open overdub, we can imprint this stuff. Particularly growly kind of pitch modulation. I'm gonna bring decay down a little bit so we can hear the new stuff a little more clearly. Yeah, it has that really growly, fuzzy sound that I like a lot. And Still not sure how I feel about this, but in the very, very, very not analog-esque category, we have some bit reduction. Nobody's going to mistake that for vintage analog gear, but it's definitely got a thing. Alright, I'm going to go back to the game that will filter out the high frequency content and add some lower frequency stuff in there. High frequency stuff, so we're going to go back to the game that does not have filters in the feedback path. Destructive time stretching. Destructive bit reduction. Destructive growly pitch modulation. To the original lo-fi-esque thing, which is pretty moderate compared to what we've been looking at. So we're imprinting sus reverse right now. Printing time stretch. Let's do the scary feedback thing again. And let's filter out the low frequencies. Let's filter out the highs and give us some lows back. And let's go back to the extreme one. Get our warble on. Let's fuzzy it up. And let's just mess everything up. So now we're getting a feedback loop of pitch shift, keeps getting higher and higher. Bring it back up here so we can add some low frequencies that don't get decayed. And let's not worry about notes and such right now. I want to hang on to it for a minute. Let's imprint that. Let's imprint a bit of higher frequency stuff. Back here. And a little low frequency. Back here so we don't decay. Well, so we don't, you know. Back up here so we can overdub without having the frequencies filtered out. Oh, that's right, my sixth string is